Hey, good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen here. And then here. All right. So my name's Andy Manzi. I was born and raised in New London, Connecticut. Um, and I grew up pretty close to New York City. It's not super close, but not that far away. And when I was a junior in high school, 9/11 happened. And from that day on, I was driven to uh, defend and serve and protect the people in the country that I love with all my heart. And in 2003, I joined the United States Marine Corps, deployed a few times as an infantry Marine to Iraq. And then, I got out of the Marine Corps in 2007, started college, spent time with family. Life got difficult. Um, but basically, the whole point of this story is to tell you how I came into surfing and how war brought me into surfing and how surfing brought me into helping a group of people that I love and admire with all my heart, our veterans and their families. So in 2013, I moved to Charleston, South. I moved to Folly Beach. I was kind of a nomad for a while. But the one thing I had when I showed up at Folly Beach was a big backpack and a couple surfboards. And I started surfing on Folly and I loved it. I eventually started teaching surfing, and I found through teaching surfing, it was like how fast people opened up to me in the water. A stranger, a surfer that was just giving them a 2-hour surf lesson. And fast forward a little farther down the road in my timeline of my life, I started suffering pretty heavily from some of the things that happened to me in war. And this was around 2014, and we're lucky in Charleston to have a solid VA. I started going to the hospital to receive treatment for some of my issues, a lot of my issues, which I really didn't even understand or know I had at the time. But I saw really early on in the hospital, like, no wonder we can't really heal fully in this hospital. And I was like, no wonder we don't want to come in here and receive mental health treatment or neuro treatment or speech therapy or whatever the case. I kept on coming back to the surfing piece. And in 2014, I came up with an idea of I'm just going to start bringing veterans out that I meet on the beach and teaching them how to surf. And I did do that. And that from there was like throwing a huge boulder in the water. I saw the power in it instantly. So yeah, we in 2015, Warrior Surf started out kind of like these two characters right here. We formed an official foundation. None of us had any experience in the nonprofit world. None of us we weren't social workers. We were surfers and veterans. But we didn't really care. We didn't really look at the fact that we didn't know what we were doing. The biggest step and the biggest piece of it all was taking that first step and telling everyone in the Charleston community that we're here. And the big reason why, it was just like I touched on earlier, that if you break your leg and you go to the hospital, you're going to be in the hospital. They're going to patch you up, and then they're going to send you home. And you're going to heal at home. You're going to heal in your community. Now, when you have these individuals that go overseas, thousands and thousands of miles away from home, and they come back, one, they're feeling disconnected from their community, and they don't feel like going to the hospital. So it's like, well, we got to bring these people to the beach because everyone loves the beach. And on June 27, 2015, we had our first clinic, and we had tons of veterans out. We had tons of people show up and support us, and we saw right then and there that like this was possible. To me, the whole time it seemed like an impossible task. This is a quote by Muhammad Ali. When you start out like boots on the ground, grassroots, mom and pop shop type of business, like the future is very, very scary to look at. But I always viewed impossible as just like he says in this quote, impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. It's not impossible is not a decoration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. And this is an individual in our history I admire very much for his stance against our country at times and against how his people were being treated and whatnot. But this one has always resonated with me because if I would have given into it being impossible, you know, our beautiful community that has been formed over the past 6 years wouldn't be here right now. You know, so we started out early and we just little by little, it wasn't easy. And we knew it wasn't going to get easy, but we found people that could help us in the areas which we needed help. And I think in anyone that tried something or trying to create something new, like you got to find people that not necessarily work in the same exact field as you, but people that have experience, people that know, people that have been through trials and tribulations in the business world, in the NGO world, especially. But we kept on pushing and, you know, through the years where we're at now, we started as just a few people on the beach with a social worker. And by going out there every single week, we've been out on that beach every single week since we started on some level, which is pretty impressive. You know, we had to learn really early on, like how to fundraise properly, how to cultivate our donors, how to thank people properly. And when you're doing all these things and doing the programming yourself or with the other people that you founded it with, like you're treading water almost immediately in the nonprofit world. Especially when, you know, you go years without having any major sponsor, because you have to essentially prove yourself. One, that the money that you're bringing in is going to a right cause, and two, like the programming that you're delivering to your people, our veterans and their families, is it quality? Is it effective? Because there's a lot of nonprofits in this country. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of them, and we're all competing in a way against each other. And there's a lot of them out there that say they do one thing and in all actuality they don't. You know, so like I said here, this is a quote I wrote down in my journal in Iraq when I was 18 or 19 years old. I still have the journal. It's covered in grease, dirt, sweat, and just and has a big piece of my soul in it. But you know, here it says, "Don't pray for easier lives. Pray to be stronger men. Don't pray for tasks equal to your powers. Pray for powers equal to your task." So it ain't ever going to be easy. And you know, before I continue, I like to think about all these people that I've heard all these great ideas come out. And I see how much our good idea had in the world and our community. You know, now 6 years later, we're research contributors to an international surf therapy organization that's comprised of 200 organizations from 50 countries. And we're just some small little nonprofit in Folly Beach, South Carolina. Imagine if all the people you knew in your life actually made moves on the things they said they would like to do to help out other people. You know, I know for a fact that thousands of people wouldn't have been touched by our network of staff, volunteers. And that's a scary, because with our demographic, if there's no contact, if a veteran doesn't have contact with family, community, just simply other human beings, and they have some experience, some tough stuff and more, or in the military, the future is very bleak for them. You know, we talked about the PTSD rates in our veterans today, which actually has technically gone down because the amount of people we have deploying overseas to fight wars have gone down a good bit, but that's still a ridiculous number. And the only way those people are going to come back whole and healthy is that they have a strong community to tie into. We're human beings and we're not meant to live alone. So every day, as hard as this thing has been to grow, I'm very grateful that we made the right steps and we stayed with it. Because anything good is going to take some work. Man, this picture right here, this guy was from Haiti, migrated to the United States, and this was the first time he had ever been in the ocean in his whole life. And I'll remember that guy for the rest of my life. But, you know, when we started with just anyone that would show up, we would help out. If you needed therapy, we had a social worker that would meet you on the beach right after your surf lesson or during the week. But, you know, as we grew, we realized one of the big key factors I've keyed on a bunch of times so far is community and family. When I got out of the military, I went to a hospital. I went to the hospital alone. The doctors would tell us things. I would go home, and family, my sister, my mother would ask like what they say. I couldn't even explain it, you know. Fast forward years later, when in 2014, when I received my first level of treatment, real treatment, I would go to the hospital all alone and have to come back and talk to my fiance at the time what the doctors told me. So it was like a process of hearing all this stuff you didn't want to hear about yourself, trying to understand what that is, digesting it, and trying to tell your people that love you what's wrong and what we have to do. Well, it's nearly impossible, especially with people with spouses and kids. So immediately in 2016, we're like, we don't know what level of programming we can give to spouses and kids, but they can come out and surf with us at least. And this picture here is me last year with a kid that his father had contracted a nasty virus when he was in the military and couldn't bring his son to surf anymore. So the guy joined the program so he could bring his son out to surf with us. And it's probably one of the best days of my life. Once again, if we didn't make those moves in 2015, this kid and that father wouldn't have smiled and cried as much as they had in this past year, maybe. It's powerful. And I think, you know, that separates us from a lot of other organizations when it comes to kind of grassroots NGO in the States. We defend our community like we defend our country. Our community is very important. And it's probably one of the biggest piece of success that we've had as an organization is that, yeah, you can come through the program, and after the program's over, we're still here and we're not going anywhere. Not everyone, you know, that comes through the program wants to hang around after the program. It's not for them or whatnot, and that's okay. We've had a few people come through the program and find other things that they were really into, and this was just a step in to find that. But our community has been something that I think will be long lasting, and our community piece is something that you can't track with data in a sense. Like you can like track who's coming to events, but you can't track and capture all the little relationships that are forming outside and off the beach. You've seen people do complete 180s because they're surrounded by a community of people that are pushing themselves and each other to be authentically who they are. And that's a key word in this. Like being authentic to self is something that we lose, I think, the older we get, or we gain the older we get. Because it's like we either give into the world or we don't give into the world. And when you're surrounded by a bunch of people that are pushing it, it makes you start asking questions about yourself. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? So yeah, like our 3-month program, our retreats, all our yoga, all our wellness is huge. And that's like those pieces of the program will meet the veteran and their family and where they're at in their life. But this community is really going to push them. So you know, through that and through all this hard work and staying true to who we are and what we do, and then the work and the efforts of so many people, some of the people are on right now, watching this session. I see you, John Hobson. John Hobson, I remember one day he called me and he was stuck at a red light in Fall Lake Beach in my 30-year-old truck with a trailer with all our boards, and he couldn't even get to the beach to get the boards there. Like, we started out so bare bones and it required so much work out of so many people, that to see where we're at today is just absolutely incredible. And, you know, today we've served over 500 veterans that we've officially tracked. The number's actually in the thousands when you talk about spouses and family members. We've raised over $1 million. Our program, which was not even a program 6 years ago, has grown into a 3-month program on Folly. Multiple weeks of the year, we have groups coming in from out of the state to receive our program. And, you know, we bring 2 to 3 groups of veterans to Guatemala every year, and we surf, we do our wellness, we do some intense yoga, and we do a lot of stuff in the community down there, whether it's reading with the kids, doing lifeguard training, first aid training. You know, we have like a community ambassador program. I was voted a top 10 CNN Hero of the Year a few years ago, which was, you know, I like to downplay everything I do, but looking at it now, it's a pretty big deal. And I wouldn't have gotten there without the support of so many good people, and you know, Tyler Crowder, one of the co-founders. Our national press, we're influencing surf therapy around the world. Man, it's just kind of overwhelming to sit here and talk to everyone for, you know, 20, 30 minutes. So summing up, but what it comes down to is, if you have a good idea, well, maybe you should take some action on it. And it's not going to be easy. But the more you hear a million good ideas every day, it's like, of all the bad news and all the bad media that we read, especially in the past couple of years, like, there's millions of people out there doing good things, grand things that I'll never know about, but there could be a couple million more. You know, and, you know, we slide through some of these pictures. Like, if we didn't start doing this, like, all these people that are on our staff right now, like, maybe they wouldn't have an opportunity to serve a group of people that are in need of help. Like, we provided a platform so even people can come in and volunteer. Good people that are dedicated, they understand why they're helping. But I'm looking at our staff right here, and like, we had no plans, right? But I learned in the military that plans are shit half the time, but planning is everything. So we couldn't figure everything out, but we stuck out there long enough where we were able to like provide a platform for these people to get back with like focus. Sorry, I keep on hitting the wrong button. Just flying through some of these pictures here, you know, like, we serve so many different types of people. Black, white, Asian. You can walk, you can't walk, you've been badly burned. But, you know, like, seeing graduation pictures, this was, you know, late 2019, maybe 2020. You know, seeing a bunch of dudes hanging out, missing limbs with tattoos and stuff. It's veterans are are from every walk of life in this country. And we can't funnel them into just these basic programs, these basic hospitals, because we're not just basic people. Through the years, we've definitely had more and more women come out, and that, you know, I was raised by women, and the women have a completely different experience in the military. I never served with women, but I hear a lot of terrible stories, and just to be able to provide a space where women feel safe to come out and be themselves and be around all walks of life and laugh. Whereas a lot of women that get out of the military, they'll never talk about being a veteran. And that's a damn shame. Yeah, this is great. Good stuff, man. Probably one of my favorite pictures in 6 years. This guy's from Maryland. He came down last October, him and his wife, for a week with a group from Maryland. And this guy was up surfing with all of us, man. He had a blast, and he never thought he would ever surf in his life. So the family's growing. It's pretty cool. We got no beer in this picture, but I think there's probably beer around at some point in this one. And this is Stephanie Dasher. You know, of all the hard work we put in, and I'm carrying on in my life. I have a couple other creative ideas that I have cooking. I've been planning, but this woman right here started helping us like 3.5 years ago when everything was being run out of Andy's notebook and it was chaos. But Stephanie is one of the strongest women I've ever met. She's a veteran herself. She's married to a combat veteran that had a gnarly time in Iraq, and they had 4 beautiful children. And she's a example of someone that knows her why, knows who she is, and knew early on it wasn't going to be an easy task. All the things I asked for her to do, and all the things she had to take on to make this thing successful. But you know, she's incredible, and she's going to be the one to take this foundation to the next phase. And she's probably one of the most creative people I know in my life. And this is probably one of my biggest achievements, or my proudest moments, that I'm able to have taken this idea that happened 6 years ago and be able to pass it off to someone like her and the team of people that she has around her. How her life would have been different if she never called me, 3.5 years ago, or I called her 3.5 years ago and tried to get her and her husband to the beach. So, my plans for the foundation, everything's been met. Like I can't really see us doing anything other than what we do. So, 5 to 10 years from now, who knows what Warrior Surf will be, how far we've gone, the impact, how far our impact has really grown. But I guess like the most important thing here is, this is my first time on Creative Mornings, and I never viewed myself as a creative. I was with someone that was an artist for a very long time, and I saw that level of creativity every single day and the amount of work it took for her to produce how she produces. But during the whole time, I never realized that I am a creative. And I created, in a sense, a community, a platform for people to heal, move on, and like live full lives, not just be able to breathe anymore, but to live a life. We get one chance in this human experience. And so, yeah, I'll leave my presentation with this. And this is, I don't know, you can call it a mantra or whatever, but the most honest thing I can confess is that I'm most often afraid. The second is that I draw breath, and move forward. And I think every day, especially after war, every day I worked for this organization, I was petrified. But like, keep on breathing, keep on moving. And so I'm open for some questions. Threw a lot at you, but I'm here to talk, and yeah.
Thank you so much, Andy. I'm so moved by everything you just said, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your story with us. It's just incredible what you're doing, and I think it's especially important because you yourself are a veteran, so you know what other people need, and you saw a lack of a service and you created it. You are creative and you came up with such an important program. And you're probably literally saving lives by giving these people something to look forward to and a place where they can work on themselves and try to get back to a normal life. And I think it's so easy for a lot of us to just go on with our daily lives, you know, selfishly, because we have not served. And we, you know, and it's important, I think, for us to remember that veterans are walking down the street right next to us, and there are ways that we can support them because you all are sacrificing so much for us to live normal lives. And so I want to know how we as a community can help you and your foundation and what you're doing. You know, are there community events, obviously fundraising, donations, stuff like that, but what can we do to be involved and to continue to think about you and your fellow veterans?
Yeah, I mean, it first starts with just like being a conscious American, also being just a conscious human being, which obviously I think everyone that's viewing us right now or part of this discussion is probably pretty conscious. Like just being aware that there's people out there that need help, and there's a thousand ways you can help someone. Just choose one. Start there. But as for Warrior Surf, you know, we got some pretty cool events coming up. We got a golf tournament coming up in May, and then we have yoga on the Yorktown. So we're gonna do a yoga festival up on the Yorktown in June, which would be pretty dope. We've been trying to do it. We tried to do it last year, but you know, so COVID-19 thing, which is real, by the way, it's a real thing. Has kind of pushed us back a year, but that's one of the best ways anyone can like support us early on. Just coming out to one of our events, meeting us, spending time with us, talking to some of our volunteers at the tent or any volunteers walking around. But then there's, you know, as this thing grows, there's so many areas in which we need volunteers to help us like on daily operations. And that's simply just, if you got some skills and you have some cool ideas, go on the website warriorsurf.org and fill out a volunteer app and drop us a resume. And that's the best place to start. Just take initiative. But just come out to one of our events. We're going to have a number through the year. You can follow us on our Instagram or on our website. But that's the best way to help. But it starts with just being conscious.
Well, we will come out to the event and we look forward to sharing that information when you post it. I have a few questions in the chat, and if you guys are listening and you haven't put a question for Andy in the chat, please do so now. Aaron wants to know, how did you persevere through the times when it felt that you weren't going to gain momentum?
Because you know, some really good friends, mentors, but the big thing was the severity of the situation for some of the people I knew. I've had multiple friends kill themselves since the war, and it's terrible. So that's what made me persevere. It was like, I don't give a shit if I'm scared. I mean, it was tough, man. It was like it wasn't clear. I lost my cool a bunch. But the why was so strong, and that if that why is strong enough, you get through anything.
Okay, the next question, Amber wants to know, could you say more about how you help get vets with PTSD involved in Warrior Surf when folks with PTSD may self-isolate and avoid activities?
You know, we did a lot of community events early on, we did. I mean, we still do, but we did, whether it's like farmers markets or whatnot. Um, but we also like is try to establish relationships with organizations really early on. And what I'm getting to is that I think people had some trust in us early on because we were genuine. If you came around any of us that started it or any of the early volunteers, it was like, it was just, we were good people to be around, honestly. So it started there. And then by there, word of mouth essentially is what we've never really actively promoted or recruited for our cycles or clinics or our camps. So basically it's just our reputation and word of mouth that like, hey, you may have these things going on with you, dude, but like the people that created this, they have the same things going on. And actually when you go out there, like you probably forget about like you guys are all veterans at a point. So really just being good people and word of mouth, honestly, is how it all, cause that is a problem. I mean, I didn't want to step into anywhere because I didn't want to admit that I had some issues going on for 7 years. So good question. Probably one of the best I've been asked.
I want to know, what's the biggest change you see in someone on their first day of surfing versus their 10th or 50th time? Like, what do you notice in how they show up, their attitude, all of that?
I see it in their eyes. The eyes, like the first time you go surfing, it is life changing for some. I mean, for many actually. I mean, it rerouted my whole life. But I notice it in their eyes, people's eyes. There's just like this calmness, even if they're like have a fear of the water after they gotten out there a few times, like gotten a few waves that morning or just been out in the ocean for a couple hours. I just see a calmness and like a sense of, it's like a purge almost. They come out and their eyes are just really relaxed and soft. They're not intense. They're not, it's like you see pain drift away. And any volunteer that's been in the water with us has seen it. And that's the first thing. I'm intuitive and I'm an empath. So I feel people without words. It's a part of me I wish I didn't have sometimes, but just life's a little bit lighter, and then maybe there's just a little bit more hope in their eyes, in their minds.
I love that.
Good question. You guys have some good questions.
You have better answers. I think I'm just making sure. Oh, okay. John said, how what? John said, how's the new Thor movie going? What is the release date? Is this a friend of yours?
Yeah, I got some nicknames, and old Johnny calls me Thor. I got a new one coming out.
Oh, I figured it was a personal
Thanks.
joke.
See you next week, buddy.
My fellow CM ladies, do you have any questions before we wrap it up? I just want to give everyone a chance to ask.
Andy, can you give us any insight as to what's next? I feel like you kind of hinted at some up and coming ideas, creativity brewing.
Yeah, so some land in Guatemala. So I'm gonna build this compound down there. And it's not a hotel, it's not an Airbnb. It's gonna kind of be like a collective. In the sense of I'm trying not to give up. Yeah. So basically it's going to be like a retreat / like collective place where people, creatives can go and hang out, musicians, artists, dudes that start surf programs. But also it's going to give me a place to provide some of this programming to people that are not in the military. So I just got finally got my yoga certification. on Sunday. Something I'm probably one of my most proudest moments in my adult life. But yeah, and there's some culinary things that are involved, and yeah, so let's leave it with that. But it's gonna be pretty cool. I'll let you guys know. I'm running 2 retreats next January in Guatemala for anyone, really. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. As long as you don't have too much hate in your heart, you're welcome. But yeah, so I'll be sending all that info out soon. But if you're in for a really cool experience somewhere really unique, you should jump on the bus with us. So I'm gonna start there. That's just the beginning. So thanks, Sarah.
Wow. You have a lot coming up, and we're so excited to follow along with it. And Andy, we really thank you for your time, for sharing everything that you're doing. It's amazing. Great job. And thank you so much for your service. I also want to thank Presley and Charlotte from Charlotte Burger PR for helping us out with everything today and giving us their Zoom. And I want to thank Redux Contemporary Art Center, our headquarters. And we're going to be doing quarterly Zoom events like we did today. But every other month, we're going to be doing some Instagram lives with some of our favorite makers and creatives in town. So if you have any suggestions of places or companies you want to see kind of behind the scenes, shoot us a line. We'll have one next month on home organizing. So if you want to get rid of that clutter in your house, spring cleaning, tune in for some free tips. And we'll see you all soon. And remember to think about your ripple effect and how, what you do, what you say impacts others. Be positive. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.